Have you ever considered that the moments of your childhood, the struggles, the sensitivities, the peculiarities were never random? What if, instead of being a series of chaotic experiences, they were deliberate brushstrokes on the canvas of your life, painted by the hand of something greater? Let's go deeper into this concept, chosen one. Because if you've resonated with the signs we've discussed, you might be realizing that your childhood was a blueprint, a foundation meticulously laid for the purpose you are now stepping into. But the question remains, what do you do with this realization? How do you take the signs, the clues, and the experiences of your younger self and turn them into something meaningful in the present? I want you to pause for a moment and reflect. Think about the most defining experiences of your childhood. Not just the joys, but the struggles, the misunderstandings, the loneliness, and even the strange moments that didn't make sense at the time. What if those experiences weren't just happening to you, but were happening for you? What if every single one of them was part of a larger plan to prepare you for the very life you are living now, or the life you are being called to step into?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
Let's start with the concept of resilience. If you were the child who carried more burdens than others, the one who had to adapt to challenges that felt unfair, you might have spent years wishing for a simpler, easier life. But have you noticed something about yourself as an adult? You're unshakable. You've been through storms that others can't even imagine weathering, and yet you're still standing. The resilience you earned as a child was not just survival, it was preparation. It's as if life was saying, I'm going to make you strong now because the world will need your strength later. But here's the philosophical twist: strength doesn't exist in isolation. It is tested, refined, and revealed only in the face of adversity. So let me ask you, do you look back on those challenges with bitterness, or do you see them as the crucible that forged you into who you are today? Can you accept that the pain was real, but so was the growth? This is not about dismissing the hard times, but about transforming them into fuel for purpose. Now, think about the dreams and sensitivities you had as a child. If you were the one who had vivid, prophetic dreams, or who felt things deeply, too deeply, perhaps, for a world that often dismisses emotions, you might have felt out of place, even too much for others. But what if those sensitivities weren't flaws? What if they were gifts? Gifts that allowed you to see beyond the surface, to sense things others couldn't, to connect with truths that were hidden from plain sight. In philosophy, there's a concept called the veil of perception. It suggests that most people only see the world as it appears, not as it truly is. But those who are attuned, sensitive, and open can peek behind the veil. Could that have been you as a child? Could it still be you now? And if so, how are you using that gift? Are you nurturing it, or have you buried it under the weight of practicality and conformity? Let's dive into another sign: the attraction of those who were hurting. If you were the child who animals trusted, who troubled kids gravitated toward, it wasn't because you had all the answers. It was because you carried something rare, a sense of safety, of peace, of grounding that others could feel, even if they couldn't explain it. But here's the deeper question: why you? What was it about your presence, even as a child, that made others feel seen, heard, and valued? The philosopher Emmanuel Levinas speaks of the ethics of the face, the idea that the mere presence of another person imposes a moral responsibility on us. The fact that hurting people and creatures were drawn to you suggests that you carried an innate ethical responsibility, a divine imprint that called you to care, to protect, to nurture. But now, as an adult, how are you living out that responsibility? Are you still that safe space for others, or have the demands of life hardened you? And if the latter, what would it take to reopen that part of yourself? Let's not forget the sign of truth. If you were the child who couldn't tolerate dishonesty, who felt deeply hurt by lies and deception, you may have grown up in a world that told you to let it go or stop being so sensitive. But here's the thing: sensitivity to truth is a rare and powerful gift. In a world filled with falsehoods, distractions, and half-truths, your ability to discern what is real and what is fake is invaluable. But how are you using that gift now? Are you standing up for truth in your workplace, your community, your relationships? Or have you silenced that part of yourself to fit in? And finally, let's return to the idea of being dependable, the child everyone trusted to get things done. If this was you, you might have grown up feeling the weight of responsibility, sometimes resenting it, sometimes wishing someone else would step up. But look at the world around you now. How many people can truly be relied upon? How many people see a problem and take action rather than waiting for someone else to solve it? Your ability to step in, to lead, to fix, and to create order out of chaos is not just a skill, it's a calling. But are you stepping into that role fully, or are you holding back, waiting for permission? The truth is, all 5 of these signs point to one thing: purpose. Your childhood wasn't random. It was a roadmap, a series of clues pointing to the person you were always meant to become. But here's the challenge: recognizing the signs is only the first step. The real question is, what will you do with them? How will you take the resilience, the sensitivity, the compassion, the love for truth, and the dependability that were forged in you as a child, and use them to make an impact now? Let me leave you with this thought and philosophy. There is a concept called telos, the idea that everything has an ultimate purpose, a reason for being. Your childhood was not just a series of disconnected events. It was your telos in motion, preparing you for the role you are meant to play in the world. But your purpose is not static. It grows, evolves, and expands as you step into it. And the more you align yourself with it, the more the pieces of your life will begin to make sense. So, chosen one, I ask you, are you ready to embrace the blueprint of your childhood? Are you ready to stop questioning why things happened the way they did and start asking how you can use them to fulfill your purpose? If so, stay with me, because in the next part, we'll explore the how to take these signs, these gifts, and these lessons and turn them into action that transforms not only your life but the lives of those around you. If your childhood was a blueprint, chosen one, then your adulthood is the construction phase. The signs we've talked about, the struggles, the sensitivities, the gifts, and the peculiarities were never meant to remain dormant. They were placed in you for a reason, waiting for the moment when you would begin to understand their significance. That moment is now. The question is no longer why these things happen to you, it is how you will use them to fulfill the purpose for which you were chosen. Let's start by addressing one of the greatest barriers to stepping into your purpose: doubt. Have you ever found yourself questioning whether you're truly capable of making a difference? Maybe you've thought, I'm just one person. How can I possibly change anything? This doubt is normal, but it is also deceptive. Because the truth is, the power to fulfill your purpose doesn't come from you alone, it comes from the one who placed that purpose inside you. When you were given those signs as a child, They were not just reminders of your uniqueness, they were evidence that you were equipped, even then, with the tools you would need to carry out your mission. But here's a challenging question. Are you willing to trust that you already have what it takes? Or are you waiting for some external validation, some perfect moment when everything will align and you'll finally feel ready? If you're waiting for perfection, you'll be waiting forever. The world doesn't need you to be perfect, it needs you to be willing. Willing to take the first step. Willing to act, even when you feel uncertain. Willing to believe that your presence, your gifts, and your efforts matter, even if you can't see the impact right away. Let's talk about resilience. If you faced early challenges, you've already proven that you are capable of enduring and overcoming adversity. But resilience is not just about survival, it's about transformation. It's about taking the lessons you've learned and using them to build something meaningful. So ask yourself, what have your struggles taught you? Have they given you empathy for others who are suffering? Have they sharpened your problem-solving skills? Have they revealed strengths you didn't know you had? And perhaps most importantly, how can you use those lessons to help others? Here's a practical exercise. Take a moment to write down one specific struggle from your childhood and the lesson it taught you. Maybe it was growing up in a chaotic household, which taught you the value of stability. Or perhaps it was being misunderstood, which taught you the importance of listening and understanding others. Once you've written this down, ask yourself, how can I use this lesson in my life today? Who can I help, encourage, or guide because of what I've been through? This is how resilience becomes purpose. Now let's revisit the gift of sensitivity. If you were the child who felt deeply, who sensed things others didn't, you might have spent years trying to suppress that part of yourself. Maybe you were told you were too emotional or too sensitive, and so you learned to hide your feelings. But sensitivity is not a weakness, it is a superpower. It allows you to connect with others on a profound level, to pick up on the unspoken, and to see beauty and truth where others see only the surface. The challenge for you, chosen one, is to stop running from your sensitivity and start embracing it. How do you do this? By creating space in your life for stillness and reflection. Sensitivity thrives in quiet moments where you can tune into your intuition, your emotions, and the subtle whispers of the world around you. These moments are not a luxury, they are a necessity. Because when you are in tune with yourself, you are better able to discern how to use your sensitivity to serve others. And let's not forget the gift of compassion. If you were the child who animals and hurting people gravitated toward, you were given a heart that feels deeply for those in need. But compassion, like sensitivity, can be overwhelming. You might feel the weight of the world's pain and wonder how you could possibly do enough to make a difference. The truth is, you can't do everything, but you can do something. Start small. Look around you. Who in your life needs comfort, encouragement, or support? It might be a friend going through a tough time, a colleague who feels unseen, or even a stranger who just needs a kind word. Your compassion is like a ripple in the water. Small acts can create waves of impact far beyond what you can see. Now, let's address truth. If you were the child who couldn't tolerate dishonesty, you may have grown up in a world that seemed indifferent to truth. But your sensitivity to lies was not a coincidence, it was a calling. You were designed to be a guardian of truth, someone who stands firm in integrity, even when it's unpopular or inconvenient. But here's the catch: standing up for truth requires courage. It means being willing to speak out when you see injustice, even if it makes you uncomfortable. It means choosing honesty in your own life, even when it's hard. And it means being a role model for others, showing them that truth is not just an ideal, it is a way of life. Ask yourself, where in your life can you bring more truth? Is there a situation at work, in your community, or in your relationships where dishonesty has taken root? How can you, with humility and grace, bring light to that darkness? Remember, truth is not about being confrontational or self-righteous. It's about offering clarity, integrity, and hope. Finally, let's talk about action. If you were the child who was dependable, who got things done, you were given a gift that is desperately needed in the world. The ability to take initiative, solve problems, and lead is not something everyone possesses. But here's the question: are you using this gift, or are you holding back? Are you waiting for someone else to step up, or are you willing to be the one who takes the first step? Leadership doesn't have to be flashy or grand. It can be as simple as organizing a community project, mentoring someone who needs guidance, or stepping into a role at your workplace where you can make a positive impact. The key is to stop underestimating your ability to lead. You don't need a title or a platform to make a difference, you just need the willingness to act. As we close this journey, I want to leave you with one final thought: your childhood was not an accident. Every challenge, every gift, every quirk, and every sensitivity was placed in you for a reason. You were shaped, molded, and prepared for a purpose that is uniquely yours. But purpose is not passive, it requires action. It requires you to take the signs of your past and use them to create a future that reflects the person you were always meant to be. So, chosen one, I ask you, what will you do with your gifts? How will you turn the blueprint of your childhood into a life of purpose? The answers are not in the past, they are in the choices you make today. Trust the process, embrace your uniqueness, and step boldly into the calling that has been waiting for you all along. The world needs you. Let's build something extraordinary together. Chosen one, you've come so far on this journey. You've begun to see your childhood not as a string of chaotic or random events, but as a deliberate preparation for the life you are meant to live. You've recognized the signs, the struggles, the dreams, the sensitivities, the compassion, the truth, and you've started to grasp their significance. But now, the question becomes bigger than just your life. Now we must ask, how does your purpose ripple outward? How does the life of a chosen one shape the world? Let's start with a profound truth: you were not chosen simply for yourself. Yes, your gifts are unique, and yes, your purpose is personal, but the calling on your life extends beyond you. The impact of your existence is meant to be felt by others, by your community, and by the world at large. This is the essence of legacy, not what you achieve for your own gain, but what you leave behind in the lives of others. So, let me ask you, what kind of legacy are you building? Are you living in a way that will leave the world better than you found it? Many of us hesitate when we hear the word legacy. We think of it as something grand, reserved for world leaders, inventors, or historical figures. But legacy is not measured by fame or fortune, it is measured by impact. It's the way you make others feel, the truths you uphold, the love you give, and the changes you spark, no matter how small they may seem. Legacy is built in the quiet moments, the daily choices, the seemingly insignificant acts of kindness and courage that ripple outward in ways you may never see. Let's look back at one of the signs we discussed: resilience. If your childhood taught you to endure, to adapt, and to overcome, then you carry within you a strength that others may not have. This strength is not just for you, it is for those who are struggling, who are lost, who need someone to show them that survival is possible. Your story, your scars, your triumphs, they are a beacon of hope for others. But here's the challenge: are you willing to share them? Are you willing to be vulnerable, to let others see the hard parts of your journey, so they can realize they are not alone? Think about this: who in your life could benefit from hearing your story? It could be a young person facing the same struggles you once did. It could be a peer who feels like giving up. It could even be someone you've never met, who stumbles across your words, your actions, or your example at exactly the moment they need it most. Sharing your story doesn't require a stage or a platform. It requires courage and authenticity. So I challenge you: what part of your journey can you share today, and who might it inspire? Now, let's return to the gift of sensitivity. If you have the ability to feel deeply, to sense things others can't, then you are uniquely equipped to bring compassion into a world that often feels cold and indifferent. But sensitivity, as we've discussed, can be overwhelming. It's easy to feel paralyzed by the sheer amount of pain and suffering in the world. So let me offer you this perspective: you don't have to fix everything. You don't have to save the world. You only have to make a difference where you are. Think about the people and places you encounter every day. Who needs your compassion? Who needs your presence? Maybe it's the coworker who hides their pain behind a smile. Maybe it's the elderly neighbor who feels invisible. Maybe it's the stranger who just needs a kind word to brighten their day. Your sensitivity allows you to see these needs, to feel them, to respond to them. And in doing so, you create ripples of kindness and connection that spread farther than you could ever imagine. But compassion is not just about responding to others, it's also about how you treat yourself. Many chosen ones struggle with self-doubt, guilt, or perfectionism, feeling like they're never doing enough. If this resonates with you, let me remind you of something: you are enough. The fact that you care, that you try, that you show up each day is enough. Legacy is not built in grand gestures, it is built in the quiet, consistent effort of living with love and integrity. So be gentle with yourself. Extend to yourself the same compassion you offer to others. Let's move to another critical sign: truth. If you are someone who cannot tolerate dishonesty, who feels called to uphold integrity, then you have a responsibility to be a voice of clarity in a world full of noise. But here's the thing about truth: it is not always easy to speak, and it is not always easy to hear. Being a guardian of truth means being willing to stand firm in your convictions, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it sets you apart. But it also means speaking truth with love. Truth without love can become harsh, judgmental, even destructive. Love without truth can become empty, enabling, even deceptive. The balance of truth and love is where real transformation happens. So, ask yourself, where in your life do you need to bring more truth? Is there a conversation you've been avoiding because it feels too hard? Is there a situation where you've been silent because you fear conflict? How can you, with kindness and humility, bring light to that darkness? Finally, let's talk about action. If you were the dependable child, the one who got things done, then you were given a gift of leadership. But leadership is not about control or power, it is about service. It is about seeing a need and stepping in to meet it, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. It's about inspiring others to rise to their potential, to believe in themselves, to work together towards something greater. Leadership can take many forms. It might mean mentoring someone who looks up to you. It might mean organizing a community project. It might mean quietly setting an example through your actions, showing others what it looks like to live with integrity and purpose. Leadership is not about being in the spotlight, it's about being the light. So, chosen one, let me ask you again, what kind of legacy are you building? How are you using the gifts, the lessons, and the signs of your childhood to create a life that matters not just for you, but for those around you? Legacy is not something you leave behind when you're gone. It's something you build every day, with every choice, every action, and every word. As we close this journey, I want to leave you with one final thought: you were chosen for a reason. Your life is not random. The signs of your childhood were not coincidences. They were the seeds of purpose, planted in you long before you understood their meaning. Now those seeds are ready to grow. But growth requires action. It requires faith. It requires you to step into the unknown, trusting that the same force that shaped you as a child will guide you as an adult. So I ask you, what will you do with the life you've been given? How will you use your gifts, your lessons, your purpose to shape the world around you? The answers are yours to find, but know this: you are not alone. You are part of something greater, and the world is waiting for you to rise. Let's build a legacy that lasts, together.